Good Friday morning, and welcome to Ice Age TV, the internal combustion engine age YouTube channel that talks on a daily basis about cars and trucks and SUVs and motorcycles and submarines and dogs. And good morning. Thanks for tuning in to the channel this Friday morning. As we end the week, another week has passed us, which is just incredible. I hit my barn gate opener and it didn't work. So I got a problem here because I'm walking up to my barn with coffee in one hand, phone in another hand, and I need another hand to open my barn up. So I guess I have to take a little stall here as I try to get the morning going on this Friday rainy day here up in this northeast now. Just rain. And it's actually it's warmed up. It's more humidor. Sorry, dogs. Let me put down my coffee here and try to get my act together. Being, why didn't my the barn open? As we open up the barn here. Come on, pups. Yeah, it's the daily routine, daily job, daily work, daily conversations. Anybody following my channel, watching my channel? And here we are. Got the Hondas all lined up here. Well, I tell you what. If you really I was making videos 10 years ago. It's just incredible how you just send Harleys and BMW and Triumph lined up here and Honda. I literally have a picture of 2 Hondas, 2 Harleys, and my 2 adventure bikes. So I think, was there something else? Maybe. So there was like, I believe, 2, 4, 6 motorcycles just all lined up in this area here in the shop. And get my barn opener thing here out of my pocket because I'll end up closing the door on my shop or whatever. And got the water bottles laying everywhere. The new dog just wants to bite like crazy. Oh my gosh. That dog. Talk about a dog that's out of control. Those German Shepherds, those dogs' teeth. I gotta clean my glasses. Gotta clean other things too, but that dog's teeth, man almighty. Yeah, I just haven't had any puppies for like 5 years. These are the last guys I had. And I just, you just forget how much work a puppy is until you get one. And there's, can't ride because it's just raining. Supposedly my Honda gear came in for the Honda CB650. We ordered some accessories for it. So hopefully today we can get out to the dealership and pick that up. So, let's get upstairs here and start the morning conversation. What are you talking about? I don't know. I mean, for me, it's not like I have this incredibly dynamic channel where I have all these people feeding me information to tell me what to say every day. So, yeah, the Yellow Submarine. Remember that song? Was that the Beatles? The Yellow Submarine. Sadly, the submarine that everybody's talking about is no longer a submarine. It imploded. That's the word of the day. Apparently, the new word of the day is imploding. Implode. Yeah. Okay. That seems to be a word using. Apparently, the submarine had a defect in it, and it imploded. It didn't explode, which I guess most people know what an explosion is, versus it imploding. I guess you could say it's the opposite, inward effect of what happens when you're in a submarine and the submarine just instantaneously crushes itself. So, wow. So, just crazy. I don't know. For me, I think it's just kind of eerie. You want to go on a submarine and go see where all the people died. Yet in the end, you're with them. I mean, that's just freaky. It's just, to me, it's like, ooh, I just don't get into that stuff. And sadly, if you're watching the news, the one Pakistani, very successful businessman that took his son, the aunts claim that he really wasn't excited about that. He's a 19-year-old, and he just really was hesitant. His gut instinct was all there. So, sad story. Condolences to all of those involved. And yeah, and I just thought, could we use that as a topic today? Yeah, I thought to myself, we could in some ways, because what you're hearing, and who knows the real story of whether the gentleman that designed the submarine, cut corners. I mean, you don't know because it's just media talking, but that's kind of the talk that the owner of the company kind of try to keep things at, real bare minimum expenses. So they claim he cut corners, and there's your end result from cutting corners that you eventually had a catastrophe. So I just thought to myself, boy, oh boy, with the government, I know some people that watch my channel, I can imagine some are like, this guy just constantly talks about electric vehicles and the government and the politics and stuff like that. And I'm sure some people are like, it just kind of gets old. And I think maybe some people are like, I'm just not going to watch anymore. And, I get all that. That's fine. But for me, I just enjoy talking and sharing my views and ideas and thoughts that hopefully maybe you didn't know, or maybe you know more than me. Just tell me. Share it on my channel so I learned something as well. So, and the reason I talk about this is because in my lifetime of being such the car, since I was a kid, I loved to pick up a car magazine or a motorcycle magazine and read about the new car, older cars, motorcycles. I just enjoyed reading content about cars. That's just who I am. That's why the channel is called Ice Age TV. It's all about the internal combustion engine age. And that's what I grew up with. And the focal point was about the new cars and technology and products. And now more than ever, the governing body is involved in the transformation of this country and the world more than ever. So for me, it just bugs me. It irks me that we are living in times where the federal government is running the ball game more than ever. And I can guarantee there are people who watch my channel and be like, oh, dude, you're so stupid. The government's always run business. I don't disagree with that. But what I disagree with you on is the government didn't get involved in the manufacturing side of cars and trucks and what the consumers wanted. And that's what irks me, is that I think so many people could agree that more than ever, the green agenda, which is borderline the government, is pushing what you need to want to buy. And I think that so many people are like, I don't want it. I really think there's so many people out there that would just say, I don't want your crappy idea, Mr. Government, Mrs. Greta Thunberg. I want nothing to do with your crap. I don't believe it. I want nothing to do with it. But yet the government, more than ever, is working towards forcing you to change the way you think. And everything. It's all around us in every aspect of our life more than ever. If the China communist country isn't here, when does it show up? Are you kidding me? The government is forcing and mandating things like never seen. And the government is wanting to go around, is pushing ideology and all these crazy different views more than ever in our lifetime. And so for me, the imploding is what I think is going to happen to this federal government and to the automotive industry. And that's why I thought to myself, we could probably use the submarine as an example of what's going to happen. Because that submarine didn't just implode instantly. It took it, how many hours. Interesting to know the Navy heard that explosion, that imploding noise. At what time did that submarine, go under? And is there a factor of probably how deep it was? They say that it's like 400 times the atmospheric pressure of sea level once you go under 1,100 feet underwater in a submarine. That's like 400, more feet, 400 atmospheric pressure on that versus on the sea level. But I'm no expert on submarines or anything like that. But so here's the thing. The electric car revolution it's just in every aspect of everything going on around us, it's happening. Semiconductors, there's just article after article now where now they've even opened up subsidies. And this is what's you really have to step back and say to yourself, okay, Joe Biden and administration passed a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. It's the new Green Deal in disguise. And And in that bill, it's offering billions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars to manufacturers and companies to convert to push the green agenda. Ford just took a $9.1 billion loan of that subsidy money, or it's even a loan. They got $9.1 billion, the biggest ever of any automotive manufacturer ever. Ford just took $9.1 billion. And there's just a list of other companies out there that are signing up to get the handout from the taxpayers, you and I, to subsidize this whole movement of the green agenda. And you read the statistics, you read the numbers, and you just think to yourself, this is all numbers based, which I've talked about that in videos prior last year about how the whole universe is just numbers. We're just numbers. Everything's a number. Everything in our in civilization is based on numbers. And so it's all about the numbers. And I talked about the other day about how this lithium phosphorus iron battery, LFP, lithium iron phosphate battery is the big hit with the CATL, the Contemporary Amperex Technology Limited company out of China that bought that technology back in like 2012, won the A123 company that founded that technology, but they couldn't survive because they were just way too early in the ball game with this new technology for electric vehicles. It just wasn't there. The market wasn't there. So they had to go bankrupt, and China bought the technology. So here we are now, 10 years later, 10, 11 years later, and this company now has become the number one giant in the world to producing the electric batteries. And they're now moving into our country to make even more batteries on the domestic side, and they buddied up with Ford. But at the same time, LG products, the South Korean companies have buddied up with the Americans. And so for Joe Biden, his whole presentation is they're going to bring all the manufacturing to our country to so-called make it more efficient and less expensive for you to be able to own these electric vehicles. That's the whole plan. That's the whole so-called give up the taxpayers' money to enrich all these companies to come here, to set up shop here, to build the infrastructure to transform our automotive industry from the ICE age to the EV age. And that's the goal, more than ever, beyond ever. And you just think to yourself, but is this anything that they think will really play out in a timely manner and fashion that it really will? And there's article after article by Ford is setting up shop, and they already have an expectation of selling they've sold 137,000 electric vehicles. They're already saying by 2026, they're going to sell like close to 2 million vehicles. And I just think to myself, okay, in three model years, you're talking about the exponential sales factor of Ford selling 126,000 electric vehicles to it's going to grow by 20 times. So that's saying that the consumers, you're talking about a mass, people in the masses instantly running to Ford to buy electric vehicles more than ever before in the next 3 years. It's not even 3 years now because 2026, we're already through half the year of 2023. So you're talking 2.5 years from now, the sales of Ford is going to grow by 20 times. I mean, do we really believe that? But that's the business model. So all the numbers that the government and these manufacturer companies are using based on the amount of money they're having to borrow and build out the manufacturing facilities and for the consumers to show up to buy this stuff, it's massive to be able to make these numbers work. And I just think to myself, but the consumers, I don't think are going to flock to this. It's already showing just in the Ford Mach-E. Tesla supposedly is doing, fairly well. Tesla kind of has that brand, and they're continuing to sell the models. But at the same time, you just have to step back and say to yourself, why? In all sincerity, why are you out and buy an electric vehicle? Sincerely. why you go out and buy an electric vehicle? I mean, and if you say it's because I'm going to save money on gas, that's so debatable. I mean, so what's driving you? And here's the other catch. When did you go buy a car and the government paid you to buy a car? So here's a whole other thing of the government. The government, more than ever, is borderline a communist government. And people are like, oh, that's radical. How is it radical when we have a government more than ever that's dictating more than ever what can be done? And we're involved in the transformation here. And if you stop and think about what I just said, the federal government's going to reward you to buy an electric vehicle by giving you a huge tax incentive that can be maybe up to $7,500. So that entices you to part ways with your ICE vehicle to get the EV vehicle because you're going to get a tax break and tax incentives. So it's the federal government telling you what to do in so many ways. The federal government is there irking you and or I should say trying to motivate you to change the way you think about EV vehicles. And how do they do that? Well, they do it by incentives. But it's once again, did you grow up? I just don't remember in the 70s and 80s and 90s and even through the 2000 years, I just don't remember the federal government per se handing out tax subsidies to just any individual. And yes, the government has given tax incentives for business owners to buy equipment, which that's been around forever. That started back in the farming days, in the early 1900s, where the tax, when you go out and buy equipment for your business, you can write that off as an expense and have tax deductions. Okay. But that's infinite on, from cars to equipment to, I mean, that's variables all over the place. But as far as me growing up, I remember my dad telling me, hey, I'm going to go buy a new Cadillac because the government just offered a $5,000 tax incentive for me to buy that car. I don't remember that conversation. I don't remember reading, as I started talking earlier, on a monthly subscription basis of the magazine I've subscribed to, about the federal government handing out money like never seen before to transform the automotive industry. I don't remember, or the motorcycle industry. I mean, the motorcycle industry per se hasn't got caught up in that yet. I mean, how much longer before the green agenda starts attacking the motorcycle industry? I mean, it's just going to be one, it's just one. First you take that and accomplish that, and then you kick it to the side, then you go focus on something else, then you get that knocked out, and you kick that to the side. I mean, I'm sure behind the scenes, somebody has a book written or some plan, master plan, that first it's going to be the automotive industry, then we're going to go to this industry, then we're going to that industry, and it's the whole government mandating and forcing the policies like never seen. But who's supporting this? And that's what you have to say to yourself. It's like you as an individual and myself, what politicians are supporting this? But we know what politicians are supporting this. And we know this, the politicians that don't want to support it. And it creates a division of our country. Then it creates that somebody looks at me like I'm just so much your anti-green agenda person. That I'm radical in my views because I don't accept that the green vehicles are going to resolve Mother Nature's, challenges of the world. I think it's bigger and broader than that. But I'm at the page of life that you just kind of keep it a fine line of not being too radical one way or the other. Where's that conversation? But that conversation seems to be, that you're the hypocrite or you're just ain't right because you're not going along with what so many think is right versus wrong. And you can use the Submarine as an example of a guy that tried in so many ways to make something work in his own world and thought that it wouldn't be a big deal. And the end result is it imploded. So for us, we're witnessing the federal government potentially imploding more than ever because of all the tax money that's being spent by the billions to build infrastructure in this country to build the what if that the masses are going to convert to electric vehicles. Everybody's going to jump on board and buy electric vehicles. And okay, but what if not everybody does jump on board and buy electric vehicles? And then you hear other articles written about how they're already talking about the metals that you need to build all these electric batteries is going to be a huge challenge. That the scarcity of materials in the future isn't going to sustain itself. And it's going to be less, the batteries will be compromised. They won't be as efficient. They won't be as good because of the rarity of the metals that are going to be needed to make all these electric batteries. And there's already, arguments over where the mining can go and happen. And there's already arguments about who's going to control the mining. I talked about that before in South America, like in Brazil. The government's going to turn off the leases of mining operations, and the government's going to overtake the mining operations. I mean, come on. Is this communist dictatorship style governing we're going to witness where the governments, and it's nothing new. I mean, I know that. It's in the oil industry, but at the same time, we're transforming from the ice age to the EV age, and you just have to, in some ways, think to yourself, is this eventually just going to implode itself because of all the numbers that everybody is factoring on what they think will play out? But if it doesn't, how does it sustain itself? How does the debts that have been incurred by the major manufacturers in all aspects of building the electric vehicles and building electric batteries and a semiconductor infrastructure, where is anybody stepping back and saying, does what really play out? Too many people bought into the system, and there's just way too many EV battery manufacturers now. There's just way too many EV auto manufacturers now. There's way too many EV semiconductor manufacturers now. And all of a sudden, it's a supply and demand problem. And all of a sudden, everybody steps back and goes, whoa, we all were so fixated on building the infrastructure of this, but we never really stepped back to look around and say, but there's 50 other people doing the same thing we're doing. And now it's oversaturated. And now the numbers don't work because there's just too many hands in the pot. Hello, where's that conversation? Nobody's talking about that. And then you take another step where there's just article after article now that I'm reading in Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, that the major office infrastructure in this country is in a shambles like never seen before. It's bad. San Francisco right now has a 30% vacancy rate in the country. It's one of the highest in the country. You can go through just a list of cities that are anywhere from 20 to 30% vacancy rate of these buildings. Why? Because the federal government, does anybody remember the federal government mandating everybody stays home? And the federal government and states, mandated guidelines for you couldn't go to work and you had to stay home. Well, we're seeing more than ever that people have figured out staying at home. They've been very productive. They don't need these office buildings. So, and the point of that being brought up is, which I've talked about numerous times, is why is somebody going to buy an electric vehicle that doesn't drive to work anymore? That now has a gas car that, they're a local person, they drive the grocery store, they go a little road trip here or there, and they barely use their car when they used to drive 15, 20,000 miles a year. Now they drive 5,000 miles a year. So where is that variable of where you're talking 30% of the workforce or more is now remote working, and they don't use their vehicle by any means like they used to. So that vehicle that they would maybe replace every 3 to 5 years, they may not replace for 10 or 15 years. And where's the talk of the carbon footprint that has been taken down from the transportation sector in this country because so many people remotely work? And meanwhile, these office buildings, it's a fact. You can look it up. The office buildings are in a major shakedown. I mean, many of these office building owners are just walking away. They're just walking away from and just hand the keys back to the bank and just let them go to foreclosure. And so a lot of these companies have corporations and they can't go after the person. So somebody that owns some major business, of office building, and you didn't personally guarantee the loan, they can't touch you. So they can go after the company you have. But they're even saying that companies like Blackstone and other big investment companies are taking the monies that they used to dump into the real estate market and pay mortgages on these buildings. They're just taking that money, investing it somewhere else someone's office building does go to foreclosure and they have a debt to pay, well, they took their money, invested somewhere else, they can just pay the difference and whatever and move on. So here's all the variables. So it's one of those things right now, the federal government, more than ever in our lifetime, is changing the way that transportation is going to be in the future. And for anybody here that's watching my channel, I think that everybody sees what I see, and they see how the federal government is dictating what the future is. But at the same time, usually the government doesn't do a very good job of how they manage their monies and how the things that they predict will play out really plays out. So you really have to believe that, is this country here in the next 10 years, 5 years, going to implode like never seen before because of all this Inflation Reduction Act monies that have been handed out to so many companies that in the end they don't survive? I mean, all you hear is the upbeat. What's the old saying in business? Plan for the worst and hope for the best. I mean, is that what they say? I mean, if you're smart, you just, as a business owner, you make the plan for the worst case scenario, but you just hope the best comes out. The federal government, they always plan that the best scenario always will play out. You ever kind of notice that? That it's always in the upbeat. Everything that, that comes through, and these politicians, they start promoting, less police, less. I mean, you can just go through the list of things that politicians start telling people that will make things better, but so many people yet will step back and be like, but it isn't real. You're just living in a pipe dream. Oh my goodness gracious. Just the morning conversations, once again, just like to share the views and ideas. And like I say, the imploding from a submarine is what drove this conversation, is that you just have to honestly say to yourself, the amount of money this government is spending on the transportation sector to believe in X amount of years. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not here to say that over the next 20, 30 years that the transportation sector, is definitely changes and evolves, but there's so many dates that the governing bodies are thinking that this radical transformation is going to play out. And I read an article at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago, about if you took the numbers on how people keep their cars and buy new cars, and you factor the percentage of electric vehicles that would play into the sales of the market, the views are that by 2035, you'd be lucky to have 25% of the market electric vehicles. That's what they're speculating. And keep in mind, I know for a fact that the Washington, D.C. rich area, the very rich metropolitan areas, I've talked about it numerous times, those will have more electric vehicles than the rural areas. But in general, if you take the masses of how many cars are in the market, but that's what I talk about, is how the government then will get more radical and penalize you for having ICE vehicles. So that's where it'll all go. So if the government's not seeing by 2030 that their little plan isn't working out the way they want it, and they see the challenges that lie ahead, it's going to be cash for ICE. ICE for cash. That's where it'll all go. Guaranteed that you'll go into 2030 year, every 33, 35, whatever it may be, and I guarantee it's going to be, cash for ICE. As a guy takes his bucket of ice to the dealership to get paid for it, right? Yeah, I mean, that's where it'll go. Where the government will then start even forcing the hand more, where you're going to have to get rid of your ICE vehicle, and they're going to pay you more money to get rid of it. I mean, it's just, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just disheartening to me just to see the constant rhetoric of this electric vehicle thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against technology. I'm not against the electric vehicles. I'm not against those. I'm against the governing bodies that are forcing the hands like never seen ever in our lifetime. And the amount of monies are being spent, never seen in our lifetime, for what they truly believe in the end is going to save Mother Nature, Earth. And I'm just not there. I just don't see it. I mean, now there's even articles of people, there's companies out there that are using the rainwater to capture the carbon footprint, that the water settles into a certain type of rock, mineral, that literally absorbs acid rain, and it transforms it back into a cleaner water that goes into your main waterways and streams. Yeah, this is a fact. There's some rock out there that converts the carbon footprint rain, acid rain, into clean water. Yeah. So there's a company out there that's trying to build massive, open land and areas with these rocks embedded into the land to help cut down the carbon footprint. There's so many things going on of this carbon, our carbon footprint society. But anyways, all right, that's it. And leave it at that. I hope everybody has a great day. Stay tuned for more adventures. What are you doing next? What am I buying next? You never know with me, do you? So have a great day. God bless. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.